What do you think? You want to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, awesome. I'm waiting for my camera guy to give me the nod. We're good? So good morning, everybody. My name is Marc French. I'm the Managing Director and Chief Information Security Officer at PSG. We're a cyber company here in town, over by Guerreri Jeweler up at 139 Main. Just a little bit of background about me. I've been a resident for a very long time. Came up through Burgess and Tantascwa. We moved away for a while. We came back. So we live in town. Quasi-retired. My neighbor Kurt here can attest to that. I quasi-retired a few years back. Started this consulting company based at Sturbridge. It's the shortest commute I've ever had in my life. It's about 6 minutes from my house. Assuming I hit every light down Route 20 and 131, it's about 6 minutes. So Leslie and I have chatted. Some of you might have seen my other presentation where we did a joint presentation with the police department on some of this. This was a while back. So we had a chat and I said, well, we do technical presentations and we do safety presentations. So she said, can you come in and do a technical presentation for folks today? I said, sure. What topic would you like to talk about? And within half a second she said, artificial intelligence. She said, we're getting all kinds of questions about that. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I don't have a lot of slides because I would rather have this interactive. So as we cover things, please pause and ask me questions. Since we're on the camera, I will repeat the questions so that folks that are viewing it can actually hear what you asked, and then I'll answer it back if I can. If I don't know the answer, I'm going to tell you I don't know the answer, and I will find the answer for you either before we leave today or I'll have to get back to you because not everybody can know everything. Good? All right, awesome. So AI, otherwise known as artificial intelligence. So its basic definition is the ability for a machine to quote, think. And we've all seen all the movies. The reality of today's artificial intelligence is most of the things that you see cannot think like a human. As a matter of fact, most of them really don't get beyond the ability to think like a squirrel, generally speaking. So, robots from the Terminator, not so much. But that's its classic definition, is the ability for a machine to think like a human being. Most of what you'll see today is its ability to be trained to mimic human behavior. So the days of it thinking on its own and making decisions and building relationships, that doesn't really exist today. And at the end, we're going to cover some of these fringy things that you all see in the news, and we'll try to debunk the ones that I can or talk about the ones that may be more real than others. So why is artificial intelligence important for you all? Because it's everywhere now. You can't shake a stick, watch TV. Some portion of what you view and see every day has an artificial intelligence component to it. To your point, the gentleman earlier talked about YouTube viewing. YouTube has algorithms that it's trying to decide what you see. It can adapt the pictures that you see. When you dial up the phone to call Spectrum, you don't actually talk to a real person. You talk to an artificial intelligence bot, where it will try to do stuff before you actually talk to a human. You have a self-driving car, you see the Tesla people driving around. That's all the machine controlling some aspect of it. So likely in everything that you do today, you're going to interact with some form of artificial intelligence. It's just there in the background. And again, examples, cars, virtual assistants, chatbots. The whole idea between AI is to make life easier. It's really meant to remove some of the day-to-day small tasks that people have to do and let the machines do it. So the machines controlling the world. It started with the Industrial Revolution, with machines doing more and more. Now it's actually morphed from that kind of traditional manufacturing piece where you had a CNC machine maybe for doing machine shop, cutting metal for you, to now in the knowledge worker space where a lot of the basic knowledge work can be supplanted by AI. So they're doing the basic blocking and tackling. It introduces an interesting challenge when we talk about how people get into knowledge trades, because if junior level roles don't exist, how do you become a senior in your job if you never were given an opportunity to be a junior? But we'll cover that a little bit later. today's goal is to understand a little bit about AI and why we do it, and then we're going to end with a little bit of safety brief on AI. Questions about what it is? Go ahead, man.
I have no idea. In fact, I didn't even know what AI stood for until I
this.
heard about, yes.
Okay.
I said, I see this thing, what's AI?
So think about it. So her question was, what is AI in general? So AI is really people teaching machines to do basic tasks for you. And then the machine's adapting a little bit to what you say to change the nature of how the task is executed. So the example I'll give you is, bad example, but it's an example. You call in a Spectrum and you say, I have a problem with my phone. Someone's coded inside that voice communication to say, I think I heard this woman say she has a problem with her phone. It will now know to ask a series of questions for you, and depending on how you answer, it forks down a different question. So if you say, my phone doesn't start, well, it goes this way. If my phone, I can't dial my phone, it goes this way. All of that, someone in the back has trained this artificial intelligence to actually allow you to get to a point where maybe it can help you before you actually need to talk to a human. Or it basically says, I have no idea what she's talking about, go talk to a real person. So all of that kind of background training and the ability to decide and give you guidance is all what artificial intelligence is. So back to the gentleman's earlier point about YouTube, what it's doing is it's looking at what you viewed, how you viewed it, sorry about that, that's the Wi-Fi disconnecting here. What you viewed, how it works, and it's trying to the algorithm is trying to tell you what's the next best thing you can watch. So it's a little scary because it knows a lot about you, and we're going to talk about that in safety, because you can overshare and then it's going to learn more about you to make your experience better, but it also knows a lot about you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Man in the back.
Would you call calling into like city for to pay a bill?
Yep.
Is it that sort of like, or is that just?
That's a basic form of artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
So at its basis, that's kind of the easiest type of AI.
Right.
It can get really, really sophisticated.
Right, I'm sure, yeah.
But that is kind of at a foundation, the basis of
Okay.
making a decision based on data. So that's kind of the easy
That
one.
immediately came to me when
That's
you started
exactly
saying,
where, so you
talking
guys are
to a
going to
machine.
interface with this all day, every day. Going
Yeah.
to the bank, going to Shaw's, right? All of those things there's AI in the back doing stuff. So it's important for you guys to realize that, because it's not going to go away. It's only going to get more and more complicated and more ingrained in your life.
Oh, geez, thank you.
There's no way around it. Any other questions on this?
Yep.
Go ahead, ma'am.
I had a question. I don't know if it's too early to ask.
No, ask whatever you want.
I have an Alexa.
You have an
and-
Alexa. Okay.
Yes, and it's an artificial intelligence, and every day at 8:20, the ESPN a program comes on there that I didn't tell it to do.
Yep.
But my brother comes and helps me, and he might have said that because he loves football. But how can I get that? It's from Monday through Friday. How can I get her not to do that anymore?
So how to get Alexa to not do the...
Yes.
So we may need to take that to the end, because that's going to require me to give you some technical advice you don't want me to say on camera.
Okay. I didn't know if it was the right time to ask.
Before we leave, come see me.
Okay.
But I don't want all of Sturbridge to know how to fix your Alexa.
Oh, okay.
We're good. So see me at the end, and I will help you. Okay.
Thank you.
Questions on this?
So you can't just say to Alexa, Alexa, delete this?
Oh, I tried that.
You can, kind of.
Kind of.
Because
You must
depending on
have
how you
bad
say it,
language.
results may vary.
Oh,
So,
because I've tried.
again, I don't
Tried
want to try
that,
to fix
yeah.
it right now, because I don't want everybody in
All
town
right,
to
I'm
stay
sorry.
in town. No worries, but we'll catch you before then.
Okay.
All right, so let's move on. 2 trends in artificial intelligence, creating stuff. So this is where you've probably seen this, and back to the gentleman's comment about the crossing of the Delaware with steel helmets. AI does a tremendous job learning about things that have already been created and trying to add its own spin to it. So the example is take a picture. You can take a picture of your house and say, make the house blue. You know, make the house have broad shutters. It can actually video-wise make that happen for you. So it's pretty amazing. What it really can't do is say, build me a house because of X, Y, and Z. It just, that requires kind of a human level of interaction that's not quite there yet. You can be very specific about it and it will look at its data. So most of these AI systems are built on all of your data. They troll all the internet and everything you say to it, it tracks and manages to try to create this infrastructure. But at the end of the day, it can't create new art necessarily. That's the human element of it. Now we'll talk a little bit about that in Fringe, but generally it's there to create data, create new things based on data it's given. So where do you see that in day-to-day life? Business cases. So if you get an ad, sometimes that ad is tailored to you. It knows enough about you to know that you buy canned corn on Tuesdays. And you're on the internet and it says, oh, today's Tuesday, and we know that Sally goes to Shaw's on Tuesday, and she canned corn, she likes this variety, I'll give her a little jingle about canned corn, and maybe when she goes, she'll buy my canned corn, as an example. Or you'll get a social media ad, or in your replies, so a lot of times when you post, if you go to Amazon and you buy on Amazon and you make a post, sometimes the response back from the seller is actually AI generated based on what you said. It's not necessarily really a human. They want to seem responsive, it's not a real person on the other side. They've looked at what you've said and the context in which you said it, and then they've adapted it to actually write back a response, and you may think it's a human, but it's probably not a human in most cases.
So in other words, what you're saying is when you go on Amazon and you buy something, and then you get down at the bottom, these are things that we think you might like to see.
Artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I look up something online, because I'm on Facebook, you know, I sell things, I forget what it's called, but
Yep.
anyhow.
Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, before I sell something, I usually look it up
Yep.
to see,
What everybody else is charging for, right?
yeah,
Yep.
exactly. You know, how much it's going for now, stuff like that. And inevitably, within an hour, I get ads for whatever it is, you know, they're trying to sell me it.
So you're teaching their AI model about yourself. So we'll talk about that in the safety, a couple more slides. We'll talk a little bit about how to pull that back a little bit. One of the interesting things you can do with this kind of create things is you can actually pivot real quick. So if you have an idea, you can actually have a conversation with the AI piece and say, no, change this. So in our practice, we use it a lot to do things like summarize documents. Here's a classic example of what we did. So you get your insurance renewal, 60 pages, right? Your homeowner's insurance, you're like, am I covered, am I not covered? You can load it into AI and say, how's my coverage? And it will actually look through the whole thing and decide, oh, wait a minute, it looks like you don't have flood insurance. And based on our understanding of where you live, you might want to have flood insurance there. So it's really good for that.
That's good.
However, the downside is you just uploaded your homeowner's policy into the thing.
I know.
So it saves you time in that you don't have to go through 60 pages of documents, but realize that you're giving them training data to use for the next person that asks, but also your personal data is in there as well. They will claim that they do a decent job of anonymizing the data, so it's not attributed to you, but you know, all bets are off. It's a trust thing if you trust them or not. So it can be really, really helpful in those kind of creative tasks. Or we see it all the time at high school, right? I'm on the industry advisory board for Tantasco Vocational. And we see it a lot. Kids use it to write papers. I don't know anything about, I didn't read this book. You can say, hey, ChatGPT, write me a 3-page paper on this. And it will write the paper for you. It will clean everything out, and it'll find everything it is, and then it'll write a paper.
So it's
Yeah.
computer cliff notes.
Yes, and then you can just, so recognize, it created that paper for that student, and then there's an arms race between the teachers and the kids to figure out, did they use AI for it or not, right? So it is there to be a creative vehicle for you, and there are many cases where it can be very helpful when you have tasks like this to use that, because it can be creative based on what it already knows. Where it really struggles is everything that AI does is based on what it's already learned. It struggles with new concepts. So if it's nothing it's ever seen before, it's not going to really help you. But if it's in reviewing your homeowner's policy, it knows a lot about homeowner insurance policies. It's probably seen millions of them. So it can make a good determination for you. But if you want to kind of pick something new, I've never thought about X, and no one's ever thought about it, it's going to fail. That's where the human element needs to come in. So this is where in art, it's very difficult. If you say, create me a Picasso-like painting of a vase, it knows Picasso and how his brush strokes, it knows what a vase is, it will create you something. If you say, I want it in Marc French's style, it has no idea what my style is. It's not going to create something that would be created by me. Does that make sense? 1 second, sir. The woman in the back had a question first.
Yeah, okay, it sees your contract for insurance.
Yep.
And it goes over it and it summarizes it. How does it know when you go to the next thing that it's you? Is it because you sign in with your password?
Because you've signed in, yeah,
Okay.
generally speaking, you've signed. So the question is how does it know it's you
In the future?
in the future?
Yeah.
Generally, you're signed in or it's tracking you with a cookie on your machine. So you've created every one of your machines has a digital footprint when you surf the web. It's unique. So every cell phone and every computer you have is unique. It has a different motherboard, a different serial number, a different graphics card. People put trackers on there so they know that machine and they attribute the data to that particular machine. Very hard to not do that. So it kind of knows who you are. 1 second, ma'am. He was next.
Mark, I'm and a friend are working on a creative nonfiction book.
Yep.
And I'm not a professional writer, I did the best I could do, and
Yes.
decided after we'd written everything to send a chapter through ChatGPT.
Yep.
And I have to say it improved it, not just from the pacing of it and all that, but my one worry is there a copyright thing that comes into play if you use AI for something like that?
Yeah, so there are copyright and intellectual property challenges with artificial intelligence. So when you're creating work for sale, be cautious about that. Because we were in the middle of publishing a book, and part of the deal with the publisher was to attribute anything that we put through artificial intelligence and highlight it in each chapter. Because they were going to check, this was Wiley, the publication house, they were going to wonder whether or not we had a copyright problem. Because a lot of these people train copyrighted material and don't provide attribution to it.
Right.
So you don't know what you get, and then all of a sudden you get a demand letter from a lawyer saying, hey, you copied my stuff.
Even more complicated, is part of it is, let's say, a reference from the New York Times or something, you send that through the ChatGPT. Now you've got kind of two, like your own writing and
You've blended the writing, and now you have to attribute it in order to make sure that they get credit for the work that they did. So it gets really interesting when you create new things about being cautious about it, especially if you're going to sell it. So if you're going to create something for home, you're pretty much good. If you're going to take what you get out of artificial intelligence, something like ChatGPT, and repackage it and sell it, caution. You got to be very, very cautious.
publishing house.
What I find interesting about ChatGPT in reading is you can provide it details and you can create what they call a persona. So I can say, as a technician or as a reader of nonfiction, tell me what you think of my book. And it will know a little bit about what a reader of nonfiction is, and it will read your book, and it will provide you good feedback back. So by using that, you can actually simulate other types of people, and it will actually give you opinions back on your stuff. So, questions about creating things? I like the dot, so keep asking.
Well,
Go ahead, ma'am.
when you put your insurance thing in with AI. Can anybody else take that out or find it, or?
Well, you're using it to train the next one. So
Yeah.
your responses and what you say
Yeah.
are in that model, so they train on your data. The way AI gets built is built on your data. So you're giving it more data to learn, so you're making the model better, but your data's also in there too.
But
Does
what?
that answer your question?
No.
So,
Like, if she puts her policy,
Yep.
and the
in
AI,
AI, yep.
can I have
No,
access
you
to it?
won't have access to it directly,
Okay.
but indirectly, what her prompts and what comes out, it will be in that model for people in the future. But you won't know it's hers, you can't attribute it to her, but the foundation of the information will be there. I know it's complicated a little
Because
bit, but-
it's my computer and my password
Yeah.
that put the information in,
Yeah.
so you can't get it.
Yeah, you won't get directly.
You want to bet?
That's a different call and a different conversation.
That's called safety.
So any more questions on creating things? This is a little wonky. I apologize, I don't know why that went sideways like that all of a sudden. It's not showing up over here, it's the TG. Well, let me just unplug it, sorry about this, I don't know what's going on with this. It's AI. 1 second.
Someone stole it.
Let's see if this does it. Close. Ugh. There we go. That's right. I just plug it and unplug it. Sometimes the best technical, just unplug the thing and plug it back in again. So let's talk about making decisions. So what it can do, and this is where it gets a little interesting, is by feeding all this data, it can actually help in the decision process. So some of the leading edge things that you could think about is doctors. So it can take a tremendous amount of data and actually look at patterns that the human eye may not be able to do because the human can't process as much information as you're feeding it. So it's got all kinds of processing power that most human brains, especially my age, start to slow down a little bit. And you can't process that fast. It can process really fast, and it can take data from all over the places and spot patterns and things that I may not see. So when we talk about helping in decisions, in many cases, it's really important to do this because it can help you in financial decisions. It can help you in hospital decisions because it can look through a lot of data really quickly and follow patterns that we might miss. The flip of that is sometimes it screws up. So generally it's accurate, but it cannot be accurate. So what we generally tell folks when they do these types of things is there's always a human involved. You do not want AI to make all the decisions for you. Because if it does, it's not always right. And if it's not always right, you might be on the backside of that wrong decision. So we generally say at any time that there's a safety issue where your health could be involved, it could be detrimental to you, to a human, you need to have another human make the final decision for them. Do not let AI do it. And you see this like in a Tesla. If you look at the Tesla car, auto drive, you still have to sit behind the wheel because it makes bad decisions every once in a while and it runs off the road and it stops and it hits people. The reason that you still have to stay behind the wheel of the Tesla is because ultimately you're in that car, you're the safety valve if AI makes the bad decision. That said, if I'm a doctor and I've got all this data, all your test data and everything else, I might aggregate it in there and see what it says because I may miss something. So it's important to have this balance between aggregating all this data and understanding what it can do for me, and then also being cautious about it impacting your life in a bad way. And it's everywhere. It's making these decisions everywhere, whether it's logistics, FedEx, classic example, setting up the routes for delivery for today. It knows enough about traffic patterns and everything else, but on the ground, you still want the delivery driver to know that there's an accident on Route 20 and he's got to go around it. So it may say you go here, but you still need that human intervention piece.
It's a one-way.
It can work at very quick speeds. It will take millions and millions and millions and millions of bits of data and process it in less than a second. Human brain can't do that. So when there's crisis things, sometimes it's really beneficial to throw it through the machine and figure out what the answer is, or figure out a plausible answer at the time. Ma'am, go ahead.
Well, just a comment, it doesn't know one-way streets when you're going the wrong way on the one-way street.
No, I live on Grasshopper Lane, everybody. And we're one way and no one knows.
Yeah.
Google thinks it's the other way. So. And then I don't care if everybody knows that because you need to look it up online in the tax records. Any other questions about making decisions? All right, so let's talk about safety. So this is kind of the safety.
Could you call it like an encyclopedia that comes out and talks to you?
It can be that. It can do that.
Right.
Actually, be honest with you,
Because of taking all that.
Google's better than AI for just asking questions. So Google's meant to distill, I mean, AI is meant to put pieces of information together, create different types of
Right.
information. If you just need a question, Google's your friend. Just say, I want to know about how to make
Oh, okay.
a blue curry, and it'll tell you.
Get
Whereas if
lazy
you say, I
brains.
want to fuse Norwegian with Peruvian meals that have less than 600 calories and don't use pork, AI can do that for you.
Oh,
But if you say, I just need a Norwegian dish today, it'll do that.
okay.
So, safety concerns. First one's, right where we deal with cyber risk. Bad people create fake stuff with AI, and it looks kind of real. The images look real, and I'll be honest with you, they can do audio and visual and video too. So there are places now with less than a minute's worth of clip of your audio or video, I can recreate you. And it will look pretty real on the other side. So it's getting harder and harder to discern what's real and what's not real. The technology is progressing really, really fast. So it's all, we generally tell trust but verify. So if someone calls up and says, I need money, you hang the phone up, you call that person on the other side and see if they pick the phone up. Because right now, with about 30 seconds a clip, I could probably replicate everybody's voice in here, and you wouldn't know if it wasn't you. It's that sophisticated now. So, I don't want you to be paranoid, but just recognize that actually exists today. And you need to take some measure to make sure that you protect yourself against it, because not everything you see in here is real anymore. It just
So it can also imitate your voice.
Absolutely, and your video. So I can create a video. If you look for me online, you'll see me. I do presentations all the time. You could just create a video of me with a presentation that isn't favorable to me in some form or fashion, and you wouldn't know the difference. It's that easy to do nowadays. And there are services that you can pay for $5-6 and do this. So just what the caution I would urge is trust but verify these types of things, especially if there's some kind of money or urgency involved. If they want you to do something fast and they need you to spend money, stop. Don't do it, because it's usually not true.
Well, sometimes I get calls from a number I don't recognize. And it could be that I'm waiting for a call from the
Yep.
doctor's office, and they're not on my call list.
Yep.
And so I'm thinking, is that gonna be the doctor? Or I'd rather talk to them live and whatever.
Yep.
So I pick up the phone. I'll answer it, but I won't say anything. And I
Yeah, they'll
just-
usually say, hi, this is Dr. Johnson's office.
Well, usually you say hello.
Yeah.
So I just wait until they say something. If it's the doctor's office, then I reply then.
Yeah.
But I don't say anything when I pick up the phone.
Because they're waiting, their trigger is for you to say something.
Exactly.
Yep.
So I just, one day I decided not to say hello.
Everything for me goes to voicemail. If you're not on my contact list, it goes right to
Most of my
voicemail.
stuff does too, but there are
Some that don't.
circumstances sometimes where I have, I'm waiting. Yeah. So,
Yeah, and you really are urgently needing that.
I know, yeah.
Otherwise, they leave a voicemail, then you had to call back, and the doctor's walked away
I
because
know.
they only had a second. Like, we just had this with the vet the other day, so I got it. The other issue that we have, oh, go ahead, ma'am, I'm sorry.
On the scam messages, can they create messages and use artificial intelligence like to call and ask you questions?
Absolutely. And they can
So
respond to you too on the phone.
Doesn't have to be a person that's calling.
So a lot of times it can be the AI bot calling you and responding to your answers.
Yeah, because I had a call, the same situation as you. I was waiting for a call. Because if I don't know the number or the names,
Yep.
I know nobody in Tacoma, Washington, so when I get
Tacoma,
that
yeah.
on my
Just let it go, he lays it.
screen, I don't answer it. If they don't leave a message,
Yep.
I don't want to talk to them. But I was waiting for a call, and I thought that this was that person calling, because I didn't have their number in. And I answered the phone, and I said, hello, and the first thing that it said was this male's voice said, and I think, as I recall, there may have been a little bit of hesitation in the start, but he said, have you ever had, have you received your new Medicare number?
Red flag, right?
And it just knocked me off balance.
Yep,
And I'm sitting there trying to actually process what he said.
yep.
And I finally said, no, I'm not doing this.
There you go.
You know?
All else fails, hang up. If it was
Yeah.
important, they'll call back. Right, here's the reality, right?
And
If
it's a-
hanging up the phone, they know it. If you feel unsafe, hang the phone up. You do not have to engage with these people, just stop. If it was important, they'll call you back. If it's a doctor, they'll call you back.
I
Go ahead,
gotta get
ma'am.
my whistle back next to my.
Oh, there you
phone,
go, there you go.
know.
Go ahead,
At
ma'am.
some point, I was told to be very, very careful about saying yes in answer to any question.
Wow, absolutely.
Because they can use that as an acceptance
Because they
of
can
something.
track your voice, and then when they go to try to open up that Wells Fargo account online, and they say, is this really you? They'll have your recording of your voice that says yes. So, the issue that we generally have with AI is it's built on your data. So the more that you share, the more it learns about you, the more it's used to support the AI model behind it. So what we generally tell folks is just be cautious about what you share online. So back to my earlier point about making fakes of you, the more you post on Facebook with video clips, the more likely I can figure out who you are and what you do. So just be cautious. Everybody wants your data. If the service is free, they're actually selling your data or using your data. So Facebook, classic example. If you're not paying for Facebook, you're the product, not anybody else. That means that they're taking your data to use to further their gain. If you're paying for product, generally no, but if stuff is free, then you end up being the product at that point. So just be cautious about oversharing data. The more you share, the more it's going to be used in these environments. Also, we talk about personal safety, like oversharing can be very important. It's a little off AI, but I want to make sure we cover this. Just be cautious about who you share with. So back to your point, don't give away information. Don't say yes if you don't need to. People want data. Just don't. If you don't know, don't do it. If it's good. Go ahead, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Mark, is this how they steal your identity?
Oh, they steal your
Because
identity
I've had
many
my-
ways.
I've
Yeah.
had a really good friend of mine, and she's a human supervisor. I mean, she's not,
Yep.
you know, just somebody that, and she had her identity stolen, and I'm wondering how that, if all this,
It can.
you
It
know,
doesn't.
she has CP, and she's in a wheelchair, and she does a lot of like her checks and everything like over her phone to make it
Yep.
easier for herself. And I didn't know how something like that.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's many ways people can steal your identity, and everybody's probably got something in the mail from some company you've ever dealt with that says, oh, we've seen that your data is in the wild and you can sign up for identity theft protection or whatever. I think I've got 9 of them running now. It can be many ways. It could be you go out to dinner and
Yeah.
the waitress takes your card and creates a duplicate of your card. You don't know it. I mean, there's all kinds of ways that people can get your information. Just be mindful, pay attention to what's going on. You monitor your cards, credit cards, and your bank statements because people can get access to that pretty easily. That is a whole other topic.
Worry about like title theft, you know, title fraud.
Title fraud for your house? Yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
because I read the AARP and, you know, when I read it and I get scared, you know, how can this be done? you know.
Unfortunately, the title infrastructure
Uh-huh.
in the US is very distributed. It's really managed by a handful of organizations for house titles, and
Uh-huh.
their due diligence in figuring out who you are is not always the best. So I don't want to disparage them, but you know, it's not like you go to the registry of deeds and it's
Yeah.
county driven.
Yeah.
Like the title insurance and all that stuff is all managed by a certain subset of companies. There's about a handful.
So is that a good thing, you're saying?
It is a
Or
good thing and a
not
bad thing. It's economically a good thing. It's
Yeah.
a bad thing because it's economically driven, because they're gonna do it for the cheapest possible price and maybe cut corners when they shouldn't.
I wouldn't want to see a moving truck. I'm like,
So the big-
I get the title.
The big issue we have right now in this space is you all don't necessarily know when they're using your data to train this. So we do a lot of consulting with companies in ethics to make sure that they're ethically using the data that you give to us. So part of the challenge that we have now is as you share an AI, we need to make sure that we're using the data correctly and for its purpose. And a lot of companies don't. I don't know how else to describe it. So I guess the moral of this particular story is just be cautious about this and how much you share, and make sure you know who you're talking to. If I got two things to take away, just be cautious about your share and know who you're talking to on the other side. If you're paying attention to those two things, it will probably not be overly impactful for you. Questions on safety? Go ahead, man.
How
Thank you.
much of a, how dangerous is it if you pay like your credit card bill over the phone? You call the credit card company instead of the computer. What's the,
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, you can find out what the credit card number, you know, never say, pay your thing over the phone with a text message and type that number in and give them the
oh
information.
no, I don't
So
do
go
anything.
to the website, find
I'm
out
on
where
the-
Citibank's thing is, and then you can call.
I'm on the phone.
To be honest with you, it's fine for both, generally speaking. You can pay on the computer. We do it all the time. Because what these companies have realized is that fraud exists, so it's very easy to get the money back. Where it's not easy to get the money back is your debit card. Because they're only, it's hard, if they drain your bank account out, there's a very small window on your debit card about which the government can recover your money. So on a credit card, they put a false charge on there, just call the credit card company and they charge back and you get your money back. Boom, done. You take money out of your bank account, within 3 days, it's unrecoverable. You're never gonna get it back. Because what'll happen is they'll transfer the money to a staging bank in another jurisdiction outside the United States in one more hop, and then the government won't be able to recover your money. So just be cautious about your debit card, because that's the one that has direct access to your bank, and it's harder to get your money back. Credit card's much easier. You just call them up, usually no questions asked, they'll just give you your credit back. So just remember that if they get access to your bank account, you only have a few days to get your money back. On the phone wise, to be honest with you, they're both about the same. Whichever one is more comfortable for you. Use the one that you're comfortable with. If you're uncomfortable with the computer, use the phone. But both of them are going to be roughly the same.
I do, I use the phone. I don't do, the only thing I do on the computer is like I'll order from Amazon.
Yeah, there's really no way to order from Amazon on the phone.
I know, yeah. But I don't do any banking.
Any other questions? It was actually created a very long time ago. I would call it late 60s, early 70s. The reality of that is, yeah, I know. I came a little later than that. What ended up happening was it was a function of computing power. So the first computers were the size of this whole room,
Yeah.
right? Old big cathode tubes and big spinny wheel stuff. AI existed in its basis form back then. It just didn't have enough horsepower to do what it can do today. So now, with processing power, you can now have AI on your smartphone, right? So Siri, Apple Intelligence will run on an iPhone 16 on your phone itself. So that's the difference. So it's kind of always been around, but right now the processing speed has caught up to where it has been to allow it to be pretty universal across all the platforms. So it's been around a very, very long time. Go ahead, man. And
On Siri,
yep, Siri. Ooh,
if it's on the computer,
yep,
but you never have clicked into it,
yeah.
is it,
If it's on, it's listening. All the time. Turn it off if you don't want it, you can turn it off.
how do you turn it off?
So if you go in, technical conversation at the end. We'll deal with tech support at the end.
Yeah.
Sir, in the back.
Where is all this information stored?
In the cloud. But generally, big data centers owned by big companies.
Okay.
In the United States, they're congregated generally in the Northern Virginia area and the Bay Area, with some spots in Chicago and in Dallas-Fort Worth. But most of the processing centers here in the United States, Northern Virginia, Southern Maryland, Bay Area and California, and a couple of sporadic other spots. But that's generally where they all are.
Are there environmental concerns with increasing the number of processors?
Yeah, because this thing spends a lot of electricity to do this. So every bit of electricity is another carbon offset that needs to be bought. So AI and Bitcoins especially are some of the most costly things for the environment from an electrical usage percent. It takes a lot of processing power and a lot of electricity to do all this AI work. Questions on safety and security. So let's talk about some crazy stuff. I say crazy stuff meaning I'll call it fringe things that are out there that people are talking about and predictions. AI is a creative partner, meaning that AI will create new art and literature. I would tell you probably not to the level that we would expect out of our artists and musicians. It will create stuff based on what it knows, but it doesn't innovate new things yet. So it's a long way off. AI enhanced humans. Yeah, like Google Glasses and that kind of stuff. There's some guy got an internet connection wired to his skull. All the power to him. I'm not sure I want to jack into that anytime in the near future. Will that happen? Yeah, probably. Fully autonomous companies. You know, this is the AI only. There's no humans. I don't foresee this for a while. You know, generally speaking, AI is not to a point where it can sell. We could basically stand up a machine shop and it will only be run by AI from front to back. You're always going to need humans there. Emotional AI. There's been a little bit of movement here. This is especially true in Japan. You know, they have a challenge with older folks and not a lot of younger folks, and they've created AI companions that feel human-ish on the surface. You can tell it's a robot. So it's trying to be emotional. You can have a conversation with it-ish. Not sure it's, you know, very interesting conversation. So it's there, kinda. Will it get better? Yes. Is that kind of scary? Personally, I think it's a little scary, but it will get there. AI leading decisions. I think AI is always going to be there supporting human decisions, but I can't see them basically allowing AI to make all the decisions for you, which kind of leads to the Skynet for folks that have ever seen the Terminator. I don't see the US government turning over the nuclear codes to AI to make a decision to launch a rocket anytime in the near future. And if you know anything about the way the nuclear system works here, it's all analog, it's not even connected to the internet. So if you go into a missile silo out in the Dakotas, it's all old analog stuff, it's not digital. Because you can't hack the analog stuff. So they've kept all of that old gear from the 60s there so that it's not connected, so that hackers can't come in and shoot the missile. So it's an interesting thing about this work. So the idea that it's going to be autonomous. Now, where it is a little scary, and we see this in the Ukraine-Russia conflict, semi-autonomous drone operations. So what they will do is they will launch a drone with a signature of a Russian tank, and it will fly over the battlefield without human intervention till it sees a Russian tank, and then it will basically deliver its payload. It's semi-autonomous. So think about that for a second. So I've got a drone flying over the battlefield with that idea of what a Russian tank looks like. And it will sit up there, and once it sees something that looks like a Russian tank, it will go, oh, my orders are fire on that tank. So there's no human intervention there. So in some cases, you will see semi-autonomous weaponry in the battlefield in the future. We're seeing it today in Ukraine. A little scary. Now, is it full Skynet where they're going to launch everything? No, but you will see more and more of this. The Navy is prototyping semi-autonomous torpedoes that work off signatures of foreign adversary submarine footprints. So if it finds a set of screws in the submarine that look like a Russian sub and it has an order to sink Russian subs, they'll drop a bunch of torpedoes, and when it hears the right sound signature, it will go after the submarine without human intervention. So just be aware that there are some things that, while these are fringe, there is some reality to some of this. Go ahead, ma'am.
Do you want to talk about all the drones flying around the United States?
Ooh, drones, a whole different conversation.
Okay.
There are drones everywhere. We have a drone license at the office. I mean, it's perfectly legal to. We could do a whole other thing on drones. So I'll ask Leslie if she wants to cover that, but we can cover that. That is probably another 30 or 40-minute conversation. Questions on some of these things, because you hear some of these things in the news and you always wonder. So, all of these have some grounding in truth, but most of them are a long ways off from reality. 30, 40 years probably in some cases, at least. Questions on these? Anything else on this space? So, wrap up. Couple of things. AI moving really, really fast. Never going away. So there's no way you can be not engaged with AI in your life now. It's just not possible. Unless you're living in Colorado on a hill with no phone and no internet and no credit card and no bank account, you're interfacing with AI at some point in your life. There's just really no way around it. So with that said, just recognize, as you use AI, is it real, is it not real? Be cautious about what you share, because oversharing helps them, but it also can hurt you. And then make sure you can, in some cases, turn it off. So if you have a new iPhone and they came out with Apple Intelligence, you don't have to turn on Apple Intelligence, you can turn it off. However, most of these organizations turn it on by default. So if you don't want to share, you don't want to participate, many good organizations will allow you to turn it off. So you need to make a value judgment about whether you want to participate or not and turn it off when you don't. And then I guess the wrap is a lot of upside to AI. It's going to make things a lot easier. It's going to provide you more information. There are some downsides. With that, presentation's done. Questions from the floor. I mean, we've been doing pretty well doing questions all along. Any more questions from folks? Go ahead, ma'am.
Do you want to get into settings, what settings you should have or shouldn't have?
Oh, for
Is
what
that a whole
kind?
nother
What kind
program?
of machine? I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities. There's unfortunately an infinite number of possibilities.
That's what
Depending
I
on.
was afraid of.
Yeah, no, unfortunately. Any other questions? So with that said, I want to thank you guys for coming today. Thanks for folks on the TV. For those folks that need a little tech advice, I'll stay on afterwards and answer whatever you want, but we'll cut the camera now so that the rest of Sturbridge doesn't hear about your technical infrastructure.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, folks.
When is-
You'll need to talk to the